the icebreaker. I think this is going to be a harder one today. So let me. So welcome to an introduction to Kanban workshop. Let me just find who's making all the noise. I think they've muted themselves. So I think everybody, Gordon will let me know, everybody should have permission to mute everybody else. Please use that power responsibly. Like if I'm saying something you don't like, it's not okay to go mute me, right? But it does. I'm pretty sure I have that enabled. So if you do see somebody that's got some background noise or whatever, then it's okay to go mute it.
So I only see the pin, yeah, Martin, when I do click on somebody.
Yeah, okay. Right, okay. So let me go find Gordon. There's Gordon. I'm gonna promote you to a presenter. There we go. That way you have the power as well, and you can help me out with that muting stuff. There we go. That solves that problem. So did we manage to get into the mural? I can see there are 12 people on the mural, but there are 27 people in the call. So make sure that you check the chat and head into the mural. If you find it in the chat, I've set up a new crazy thing, a kind of community portal, and the links to the mural are on there as well. So if you should be able to get access to that. I saw a few of you pop in earlier. George was poking around trying to see what the heck is this crazy thing that Martin's doing now. Sometimes you have to run an experiment, and sometimes experiments don't go well. So the using Teams was okay from a functionality. Well, it wasn't really okay from a functionality perspective. It was okay from a things working perspective, but some people lost emails. Some people didn't get the invites and ended up in trash folders. That kind of sucks. There's no kind of web-based way to get the invites. And the other way of registering on my website just really wasn't a good idea. It's okay for selling tickets for classes, but it's not okay for everybody else trying to I just want to join a workshop that's free. So I have set up something else, and I'll use that next time, and I'm going to use it for some of my classes going forward as well. So we'll see how that works out. So I'm going to just unlock. Let me summon everybody. I've summoned the 15 people that have managed to get into the mural so far, and I am unlocking all of the little. Let's see. I need to get a little space that doesn't have a little padlock on it. There we go. So here I've got a little icebreaker. Everybody that's been before knows the deal. You grab a little ticker across and whether you agree with the statement. But this week it is a little bit more complicated. Gordon said this was all too easy, so I decided to make it a little bit more complicated, so you can blame Gordon. And there are two types of tiles here. There's 10 questions. 5 of them are purely Kanban focused, and 5 of them are Scrum with Kanban focused. So I have hopefully clearly marked them. I understand that doesn't always work out the way I think I've marked them and the way people see it. But it's basically the odd numbered ones are Kanban, and the even numbered ones are Scrum with Kanban. So read the statement, grab a tick or a cross, whether you believe it to be a true or false statement, and drop it onto the thing. Some of them are. I have managed to make sure that some of them are true and some of them are false. So there should definitely be some things going on.
There's no blank one this time.
Yeah, there's no blank one this time. I actually managed to get. I was checking it earlier. Do you know what? I was checking it an hour ago, and I had 5 blank ones because I'd only done half of it. So I had to go figure out how to get all of those things on there. or just what I wanted to put on there. So as usual, at the end of the icebreaker, or as usual, I've done it once before, I am going to close the meeting so people can't join it. We've had a lot of disruption when we're trying to do breakout rooms. I just posted the mural again. When we try to do breakout rooms, teams can get very confused when people are dropping in and dropping out, and I think it's the same with Zoom, just gets confused. So I'm going to lock it, and then so unfortunately that does mean if you do get disconnected, you probably won't be able to just rejoin because the meeting will then be closed. I am really sorry if that's the case, but you can watch the live stream. It's just too disruptive to have people dropping in and out all the time, especially when we're doing pairing and various breakout room formats. Cool, this is interesting. Well, there's definitely some contentious ones. So I always think back when I'm trying to come up with some of these questions. I always think back not just to what's people ask me or ask at some of the events, but also what I thought, right? Because I get things wrong as well, and I understand things differently, and I have been quite often berated by Daniel Vicanti for getting some of the Kanban parts incorrect, and we have a good argument about which way it is, and usually he wins because it's Daniel and he usually wins. So I'm going to give it another couple of minutes just to get everybody on here. Let's see, we have 26 people in the mural, and how many people do we have in the meeting itself? 29. That's pretty close. That's pretty close. So most people are able to participate. If you're just want to sit at the back and not say anything, you can always join the live stream. It's this is streaming on YouTube and LinkedIn, maybe Facebook. I can't remember whether that'll work or not. But everybody's getting to look at Gordon at the moment. Just the way it works sometimes, it kind of flicks between whoever's It's complicated when you're using Teams to do some of this stuff, and I think it's actually quite good because then everybody's not visible, because not everybody wants to be on the live stream. Okay. Well, this looks good. Some interesting outcomes. Okay. So I think I'm going to start going through some of the items. These are definitely very common contentious things. In fact, all of them are pretty common contentious things that either people get wrong, or Scrum people get wrong about Kanban, or Kanban people get wrong about Scrum, or both, right? So we've got our number one is a Kanban statement. Work is done within prescribed time boxes. There is only one tick on there. I'm going to put a nice big cross in the corner. There's no time boxes in Kanban. It's just a continuous flow of delivery, and a piece of work can take any amount of time. It could take 6 years, right? I would suggest that's not a good idea. Okay, it's something to worry about, but there's nothing in Kanban that says what that limit is. Number two, this one's pretty contentious, don't you think, Gordon? Every item in the sprint backlog must help the developers achieve the sprint goal. I don't know if that's quite, I think it's about 50-50, isn't it? Looks about 50-50 to me. What did you say for that, Gordon?
I said no.
You said no. You are...
Yeah, I mean, my thinking is sometimes there's just stuff that needs to be done.
You are correct. It would be totally ridiculous to say You can only put stuff in the sprint that's to do with the sprint goal, and then what about that bug that we just found in the product that's nothing to do with what we're working on now? Does that mean we have to ignore that? Does that mean we should have a bug fixing sprint at some point in the future, right? Maybe a hardening sprint, right? All of those things is results in incorrect behavior. Okay, it's okay to have a limited focus on the sprint goal. It's okay, right? I would be worried if it was really low, but it's okay. It's okay. You can have that. You can bring in other stuff. I think this will come out in number 6 as well. Number 3, Kanban question. Every column must have a WIP limit on the board. There is no requirement for every column to have a WIP limit. Okay. It's a common misconception. It's one that I got wrong when I was doing my professional Kanban certification. There's I'm looking for
is now joining.
Somebody's joined on the phone. That is going to be awkward because if you're on the phone, you are not going to be able to see the mural, but hopefully you've got a computer and you can see it there. Yeah, so every column doesn't have to have a WIP limit. There just has to be a WIP between the start and finish time. That's where we calculate our WIP. You could have many columns in the middle that don't have WIP limits, but the entire WIP limit applies. So maybe that's a little bit semantic, I guess. But it's definitely a big X. Number 4, a Scrum and Kanban one. The Scrum values are mandatory in Scrum. I love that that is not ambiguous. Everybody put a lovely green tick in there. They are mandatory. You don't have to be awesome at them. That part's not mandatory, but you need to have a little bit of focus on them. Number 5, Kanban. Work must flow from left to right on your Kanban board. Well, this was another one that I got wrong, and I argued with Daniel Vacanti. We are all wrong in that one. It doesn't have to. So there's nothing in Kanban that says that your work has to flow from left to right. I would suggest it's a good idea, and I would suggest that if it's flowing the other way, you would want to look at why it's flowing the other way. But there's nothing in the Kanban guide that says that it can't. Okay. I agree with everybody that it's a good idea that it flows from left to right. That bit I do agree with, but it's not mandatory. 5, 6, number 6. Oh, Scrum and Kanban one. Developers can reserve 80% of their capacity for unplanned work. What did you put there, Gordon?
I said that was true. But again, like for me, it feels like one of those things. Like depending on what's happening that sprint. If you've potentially just gone live with something, you could potentially be expecting a lot of unplanned stuff, and then next.
So there, well, hopefully you have better quality than that, Gordon.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, yeah, hopefully. But I mean, sometimes.
But it's okay to reserve 80%, 90%, 95%, and only spend 5% of your time on the sprint goal. That goes to that same number 2 question. It's the other side of that. We can reserve time for other things, right? You already, when you walk into sprint planning, you're thinking about any business as usual work that you have. You're thinking about any refactoring you might have to do. You're thinking about any production, your normal production issues that you reserve 10% of your time for production issues, right? So we're already doing it. We just need to formalize it and say it's okay to reserve 80% of your capacity. Now, as a Scrum Master, right, I'm going to be looking at that and going, really, we're only able to spend 20% on adding value for the product owner? Maybe we should look at why that's so low, okay? But there might be perfectly reasonable reasons for it. I didn't say good ones, I just said reasonable ones. That's number 6. Number 7, Kanban question. A definition of done is a policy on your definition of workflow. Yes, it is a policy. It's just a policy in Kanban. So everything is defined as you as a team deciding a policy. We'll get to that in a little bit, but that should focus there. Number 8, Scrum and Kanban, you can start a 5-day piece of work 1 day before the end of the sprint. This is true. I'm just going to grab somebody's tick and make it bigger. It's easier for me. There we go. It's true. That's okay. Right? In the Kanban world, we can have work flow across the sprint boundary. Right? And if we have awesome engineering practices, Gordon knows all about this. He's a Microsoft MVP as well. If your engineering practices are good enough that you can do continuous delivery to production, okay, and you can hide work that is not finished and not show it at the sprint review, not have it in your already deployed product because it's hidden behind a flag, then there is no reason why you can't start a 5-day piece of work 1 day before the end of the sprint, and then you just don't show it at the sprint review. It doesn't appear in production, but we've written some code, we've done some work against it. Okay, that's perfectly okay in the Scrum world, as long as our engineering practices are good enough that we can get a usable increment of work at the end of the sprint. Right, that's the key. I would say that many teams can't do that, so they're not ready yet to focus on that. Number 9, people participating in a Kanban strategy are referred to, spelling mistake, as the Kanban system members. Yep, I don't know how many people just knew that. Not many people answered it, so maybe it was a little bit confusing wording. We call people developers in Scrum, or team members. Right, that's generally the terminology we use. The Scrum Guide says developers and the Scrum team, but in Kanban, it's just Kanban system members, people participating in the Kanban system, and that doesn't have to be Scrum either. It can be waterfall teams. And then the last one, number 10, you don't need a sprint goal for every sprint, and everybody put a big X on it. That's awesome. I am quite happy with that one. We don't need to argue that. And anything surprising for you there, Gordon?
Yeah, the left to right. I felt like if anywhere that's going to be mandatory, it would be in Kanban.
I know. Me too. I thought that as well, and I went round and round with Daniel Vacanti on it, and he said as well, it is definitely a thing you would expect with positive behavior. I'm trying to not be too explicit here, right?
Yeah.
You would I would definitely like to see the work moving from left to right, right? Yeah. It's going to break your data. It's going to break your ability to monitor your flow if stuff starts flowing in multiple directions. Things moving back. That's what's going to happen. But there's nothing that says it can't. Kanban's not just about the data. I mean, it is, but it's not. So, would anybody else have a comment they would like to make on maybe something they thought was contentious? Avena? I heard a cockerel in the background on your audio there. That's pretty awesome.
Martin, I have a question on the definition of done. This is in Chimunya?
Yes, I guessed. I recognize the voice in Chimunya.
Right. I was the only one that put an X on the definition of done on the workflow. And the reason why I put an X was if a team is not using Scrum, then the definition of done doesn't apply. So maybe you can comment on that.
Well, that's definitely I understand what you're saying, and there would be no requirement for a Kanban team to have a definition of done. Okay. But how do they know when their work is finished? How do they know to move that work from being in progress to being completed? What rule do they apply? What decisions do they make as a team in order for that to happen? And where do they define that? And wouldn't that definition, in the Scrum world, we would just call it a definition of done. In the Kanban world, it's a policy for being finished, being complete.
Right.
So yeah, they probably I was going to say they probably wouldn't use the terminology definition of done, but I think the terminology definition of done is kind of ubiquitous at this point. Most people would just use that terminology. Our definition of done to move into that final column, or if it's called completed, they might call it definition of completed, but it has the same meaning.
Okay.
You're right. You're right. Yeah, that's a little bit, maybe it should have been on a Scrum with Kanban card instead of just a Kanban one. Must be a way to phrase that doesn't imply Scrum. I'll think about that. I'll think about that for next time. But yeah, thank you for that.
Okay.
So I want to do a little exercise. I'm going to, at this point, we're going to have to close the meeting. So let me lock the meeting. There we go. So, oh, I clicked it. Oh, there we go. It didn't disappear right away. There we go. Locked. No one else can join. Okay. So I have space for 8 groups of 5. How many people do we have? 31. But one person's on the call, so maybe they need to stay with me. If you, the person that's on the call, are you able to see the mural? I don't even know how calling in works for going off mute and on mute.
I can't see the mural.
Okay, so if you can't see the mural, it's going to be very difficult to participate with everybody else. But let's see. Yeah, nobody joined after I put the last copy of the mural in there. So if you can't see the mural, let me know in the chat or however you can, and I will not put you in a breakout room because that will put everybody else at a bit of a disadvantage.
Okay.
Yeah, so raise your hand if you cannot access the mural, because we do really need that for this exercise. So I'm going to 30 people into 5. Gordon, you're the smart one.
It's six in a room then, right? If you're doing
well, let's do. I'm thinking.
If you wanted your 8, you'd do 4 people in a room.
I really
if you
want
8 rooms.
I really want 5 people in a room. Yeah, but I'm just worried about 6 rooms. Let's do 5 rooms, and then there's spare people, just in case there's somebody who can't access the mural in a room. That'll help us caveat that problem. So I'm creating 5 rooms. They'll be numbered 1 to 5. I have 8 boxes here, but we'll just use the first 5. So let me summon everybody. Oh, I clicked on the wrong thing because there we go. So it's 26 people. Yeah, we should have enough. Okay, so this is going to be fun, Gordon. Does this look complicated to you?
A little, yeah.
Okay.
A lot more boxes than last time.
A lot more boxes than last time. So let me zoom in to one activity, and I'm going to summon everybody again. So this would be the room 1 activity, and there are 5 boxes vertically. Can you see that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in round 1, round 2, and round 3. Does that make sense for you, Gordon?
Yeah.
Cool. So in each round, we are going to do an activity in our breakout rooms, and I'm not going to be there to help you because there's 5 rooms. So hopefully there's at least one person in each room that totally understands everything. But I have 20 little oh well, it would help if they went on top of the thing, bring to front. I have 20 little circles here. So I'm going to copy that, paste it in on top. There we go. So I've got 20 little circles in the red box. Okay. So in your rooms, you're going to decide who. Diana, are you okay?
I think that
Yes, I'm okay. But I'm using a font, so I cannot access the mural.
Yep, Android phones don't have write access to Mural. If you have an iPhone, you do, but Mural have not been good at supporting Android very well. But yeah, so hopefully in your room you can work with the other people that are there, or you could be the timer, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to time how long it takes to do some work. Okay, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to alter the batch size for each round. Okay, so the instructions are in the mural, but I'm going to go through them because yeah, I understand it's complicated. So in round 1, this is for Gordon because he's difficult with the complicated stuff. So Gordon, in round 1, we're doing batch sizes of 20. Right? So you can only move 20 things at a time. So you have to, whoever's in the red process box has got to process 20 things, move 20 things to the green process box. So what I'm going to do, for example, is I'm going to change each of these, and I'm trying to click the right button. I'm going to change each of them to green, right? And then I have to move them over to the green box. Oh, sorry. I am not smart, am I, Gordon? Let me put that back. I got to change them to red because they're in the red box. Gordon, you should have caught me on that.
I'm the slow one. I'm busy catching up still.
Yeah. So when it's in the red box, I've got to change it to red. And I'm not allowed to move anything over to the green box until they're all red because the batch size is 20. Right? So once they're all red, and I'm going to lay down some rules, you're not allowed to multi-select, Gordon.
That's what I was thinking.
You're not allowed to... Why can't I click? I'm having a mural difficulty here. Mural's not letting me deselect the items. So let me refresh my browser because turning it off and turning it back on again generally solves every mural problem there is. I'm just refreshing the browser. Okay, I can see some people are having a play, seeing how you do that. You basically click on an item, it pops up a little box. You've got a color button. You click it and you change it to another the red. Okay. Once you've got them all changed to red, right, it will look like this, won't it, Gordon? Well, apart from that pink one that somebody just changed before I grabbed it. Okay. And then one at a time, you're not allowed to multi-select. You move them all to green. And then the person who is in the green process box has to change them to green. But they're not allowed to start changing them to green until there's 20 items there. So some people will do all 20 items, then move them across one at a time. Some people will change it to red and move one item across, red and move, red and move, red and move. But the green process cannot start until they are all green. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then they move on to the yellow process. And whoever in your room is designated the yellow process owner is going to make them all yellow, and then pink, and then purple, and purple is the customer, right? So once they're moved into the purple box, we're going to write down how long it took to get everything done. So somebody in your group's going to time how long it takes to get the batch delivered. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so the two things, have I made it complicated enough for you, Gordon?
I think so.
Okay, let's, what we're going to do is I'd like you in your group, when you get into your group, is to estimate how long you think it's going to take, right? Like, how long do I think this is going to take? And then you're going to time how long it actually takes. So do go, start a timer. Somebody do it on your watch, on your phone, whatever it is, start a timer. And when the first batch is delivered, split the timer. That way you know it took 4 minutes to do the whole batch. When we break up into smaller batches, right? Because when you move on to round 2, you're going to do batches of 5. So you change 5 to the color, move it across. Change 5, move it across. Change 5, move it across. So we should have 4 people working at the same time. Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then on the last round 3, it's batches of 1. Right? So you can change the color and move 1. Change the color and move 1. So if you're processing in that color, you can process 1 at a time, or 5 at a time, or 20 at a time. That sound good?
So just to make clear, so we do round 1, we move everything to get it all the way through down to block 5. We capture how long that took. Do we immediately move on to round 2 and then do it in batches of 5 then? We don't wait for like an external timer or a ping from you.
Correct. We're gonna do all of them. And oh, tell you what, Martin, something weird happened there. I see what happened there, and I see what the problem is. This has become why is that become unlocked? Right. Yes, Gordon. So you do. I'm gonna fill up all of the little boxes. Okay, so you've got your starter items. Can you see that now?
Yeah.
I'll do the other teams as well. Okay.
Yeah.
But the idea is you click an item, change the color. So when you get into your rooms, decide who's going to work at each station. Right? There's 5 stations. The customer's the last one. Then time how long it takes to get one batch done, and then the final batch done. So we don't care about all the ones in between. First batch, final batch. So obviously in round 1, there's only 1 batch anyway. So it's the same number. Round 2, there are 4 batches of 5. And round 3, there are 20 batches of 1. Does that make sense?
Just double check. So on round 2, we move 5 across to 2, right?
So on round 2, you change 5, the color of 5 of them, move 5 across to green, and then the green person can start working with that batch of 5.
But can the red person start working on the next batch so long?
Yes.
Okay, cool. That's the idea then.
That's the idea is
yeah.
As soon as we start reducing the batch size, we're going to have multiple people working at the same time.
Yeah, cool.
Right? And the important thing is to collect the numbers. Okay? So I put some little stickies on there so you can put the numbers in those boxes, and I'll just add some stickies to the other 2. There we go. Right, so it's just taking me a minute to set this up, and then I'm going to copy that whole thing, so don't move anything around yet, and we've got, there's, whoop, why is, Mural is definitely being a bit weird today.
And your first batch is the first time that all of that batch size make it into the customer, and your second sticky is once basically all 20 have made it through to the customer, the timer.
Correct.
Cool.
So I've just filled up 2 of 3 of the things. Let me get the, I almost got that to sit on top of the thing that I wanted it to sit on top of. There we go. So everybody remember, now these things can move around. So I've set up all 5 batches. What I'm going to do is I'm going to monitor what's going on, and I might jump into a breakout room if folks are having trouble, right? But cheating is multi-selecting, right? That's cheating in this case. So when you're dragging and moving, you can only move 1 at a time. you can't start your batch until your process until the full batch that you're expecting is there. Does that make sense as well, Gordon?
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
I don't seem to be in any breakout.
You are definitely not yet, Eki. I have not opened the breakout rooms,
Okay.
mainly because Gordon was having such a difficult time understanding, so I wanted to make sure everybody he's my litmus test. So I'm going to open the rooms. I will come and help, but proceed from round 1 to round 2 to round 3, right? Do them one at a time. Make sure you know which process you are, what color are you changing things to, and agree before you start how you're going to do the work, okay? Does that make sense? And I will keep an eye out for cheating. That's what I will do. Okay, so I'm going to open the breakout rooms. If you need me, ping me. There's 76666 in the different rooms. So maybe somebody's just watching, but if you're just watching, either do the timing or watch out for cheating. That's lots of vigilant people. That's what we want. So let me do that. So breakout rooms I've started opening. You should all end up in a breakout room, and the number of the breakout room matches the box at the top of the different areas. So there are 5 areas and 5 breakout rooms. Okay, so I did that badly. Right, so don't show cursors, hide non-facilitator cursors. Okay, that should speed things up. Okay, so James, are you okay? I can see you're still here. James did not end up in a room.
Hi, I'm having a bit of a room.
It sounds like you're having a little bit of internet connection issues. Which room did you get? Let's see, we lost. See, we lost a couple of people. There's your room. Let me ask you to join your room. Do you get a pop-up now, James?
No, it's still wearing, I'm afraid.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So room 3's get 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Room 4's get 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Room 5's get 5, so we're good there. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Awesome. So we lost Dennis. James is being difficult. Yeah. So have you seen this exercise before, James?
Is it a variation on the coin game?
It is a variation on the coin game.
Over.
Yeah. So instead, when you're doing it in person, you can't really do that. So we need to do it a little bit differently. I think we're going to struggle for time actually, because it took a long time to explain that. Is sometimes difficult with so many people as well.
Yeah, it's awesome the way you've set it up. It looks really good. I'm sorry, I'm just really struggling with my internet. So I think I missed the.
That is okay. These things happen. Internet sometimes doesn't work out so well. It looks like I'm not sure who it is that's on the call, because it doesn't say your name. It just says your phone number. But plus 23 must be having a bit of trouble as well and decided just to call in. And sometimes that works too, right? I mean, Luckily, once mural can take a long time to load on a poor connection, but once it's loaded, it usually works pretty well. But actually, I've no. Oh, there's one team. Group 3 has started to move items, or they're thinking about it. They're maybe still. I'm actually going to pop, if you can forgive me, James, for leaving you here for a minute.
Please do. No, please do. I'm sorry, I can't get into the room.
I'm trying to did the calling you again, see if that works. But I'm just going to pop into each room and make sure that folks are okay. Just heading into room.
Okay, you can't see. I can't see the Yeah, I think somebody else had the same problem as you. They couldn't see the mirror one.
Hey folks, how are things going?
They're just
Fine.
yeah, so coordinate which one will be which color.
No, that's totally good. So what might be easy is just putting a post-it with your name on the boards. Do you know how to put a post-it on there? If you drag one over from the left. Yep, we got so make the post-its really small. That's probably a good idea. And then that make it easier to pick who's which color.
Yeah, please.
You're very welcome.
Martin, what's the first batch and the final batch? The first one is
So
finish the red one, and the final is the purple.
So no, there is only one batch in round 1 of 20 items that goes through the whole process. So you only need to record one number for round 1. Okay? That's just me duplicating things at the bottom. 5 minutes. You guys think you can do it in 5 minutes?
Sure, but let's try. Hey guys, can we start?
So who's doing the timer?
They're supposed to be one after the other, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes. So I think Gregory's going to start the timer once you change the first color, Anna.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Sounds like you're all sorted. I'll go check on another group, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Ah, that's better. Let's see. Group 2.
Oh. Oh.
There we go. And there we go. Group 2's off to the races as well. Looks like James managed to get in there. I think he's done the coin game before. For those on the stream who are wondering what the heck's going on, you can see the this side. Yep, opposites. You can see each group has a little set of tokens. They're just changing the color of the tokens, which simulates flipping a coin. When you run this in person with a group of people, I usually turn up with a bag of coins, like 20 coins. First person gets the bag of coins. They have to sort them out so that they're all either heads up or tails up. And then each person that it goes to in the process flips the coins over, and they have to flip all of the coins over. And you make rules like, one hand behind your back, or not flipping two at once, all those kind of things. And then it has to go round all the people before it's done in the batch size. So the first exercise is batches of 10. So you can already see that it's going pretty slowly for the groups. I might have to pop in and help out group 4 if their stuff doesn't start moving in a minute. But you can see group 1's going from 1 to 2, and then they're going to start changing to green, but you have to get them all across first. And it's the time it takes to do all of those things builds up and builds up and builds up. And when you've only got one person working at once on a particular activity, it really slows down, right? So if you're in the software world, what that equates to is a big backlog item, right? Some big chunky thing flowing through the process. That's a big batch size. That's a batch, right? I have another exercise that we probably won't have time for. We'll probably wrap up this one, and that's all we'll have time for, just because of the length of time that this took to set up. I probably need more practice at doing that. But this time is going to be huge for round 1, and then it's going to reduce, obviously, as we get towards round 3. But the thing that's surprising is the amount that it reduces. Okay. So it tends to be a huge amount of time. I think 20 items is too much. I need to reduce that to 15. Thank you, Glaudia. Glaudia had it at 15, and I changed it to 20. 15 is the right number. Oh, I see a big multi-select going on in room 4. But I'm going to let them away with it because they're quite far behind. So they are cheating a little bit. That's okay. So let's see what we've got. Yep, room 1 is on 2 to 3. Room 2 is on 2 to 3. Room 3 is on 3 to 4. Room 4 is on 2 to 3. Well, they're on 2. They're processing 2. Room 5 is almost finished processing 2. That's okay. The numbers are going to be really horrible. And that's what you want from this exercise. You want to demonstrate that the numbers are horrible when you have big batches. I use this exercise quite a lot with teams when they don't see the value of breaking things down into smaller items. This can be a good exercise to kind of just trigger them thinking about, well, what does having a big thing mean? How important is it to break things down? Because there's extra management effort in working with smaller things, right? If you think about, you've got your tickets in Jira or Azure DevOps or whatever it is you're using. I have 1 ticket to manage versus I have 20 tickets to manage. Which one's easier to manage from a tooling perspective? Well, the 1 ticket's easier to manage. But from a work being done perspective, it's better to have those smaller units. So the balance of work between the amount of time you spend doing the work versus managing the work is where that contention comes in. And I do find that a lot of teams begrudge the extra, 30 minutes, the extra hour even it takes to manage those 20 items versus the one big item. But the benefit of breaking them down into smaller things is huge. It can really help teams improve their flow of delivery, improve their predictability, and just get better at delivering stuff. So we've got, this is definitely taking quite a while. We are going to hit the time limit. I'm going to carry on because that's what I do, but I think we took a little bit too long in the icebreaker, and then it just took too long to explain it. I'm trying to think of ways to do this exercise that make it easier for people to understand so we can get into it quicker, because it should take about 30 minutes all told. probably about 8 minutes for the first round, and then reducing there. I think I put 10 minutes for the first round, 5 minutes for the second round, 3 minutes for the third round, because people do get better at doing the task, right? There's a little bit of learned repetitive movement. You're learning better ways to do it, so that improves, but only a little bit, right? The biggest improvement comes from batch size. So we get 3 to 4, 3 to 4. Okay, awesome. So we've got one group that is finished and took 8 minutes 32, but their expectation was about 4 minutes. So that's pretty awesome time. So they're on their second round, and it's batches of 5. So hopefully they will get that organized. I am going to let me delete that. I think sometimes Mural doesn't like having too many things on the board. So if I delete these, even though I've made them one thing by grouping them, I wonder if grouping really helps from a performance perspective. It should do. It should do. Which group is Gordon in? James is in group 2. Gordon is in group 3. How's group 3 doing? Okay, so group 3 started on their second round. So they're thinking 6 minutes for the second round. Okay, so that could be interesting. So that's their first group of 5. And then the next person, so they've got a little bit of a bottleneck there. You can see that how they've organized the stuff. They would need to learn the first batch is here, the second incoming batch is here. That way they don't get them mixed up. But they'll learn that as they go through, because they've got to do it 4 times. So they'll get 4 chances to optimize their process as they go through. It's definitely interesting. I love doing these exercises. This one is just a little bit time consuming, but I'm going to pop in, and because I think group 5 there is struggling a little bit. Oh, and so is group 2. Group 2 and group 5 are struggling. Oh, okay, group 4 is, let me go help group 4.
Just fix all the iron and the rest.
Rhoda, give me some assistance here, or Martin can.
Okay.
Martin, I'm trying to select all of these so that I move them.
Yes. So I was using. Yeah.
So you're only supposed to select one at a time, but can you drag them and move them just now? There you go.
Yes. So how we are doing it is, once you change all of them, you take all of them at once, then you start changing them, then you start recording time then.
Okay.
Does that work?
It does. It does. You do it that way. That makes sense. Remember that we want just the time for the first batch all the way through the system. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How long does it take to get everything through the system?
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, that's the time that we're looking for.
Okay, Eki, it's your turn. Change them to, which color is this? Orange or yellow? Yes, one of those colors.
Duplicates and move it to that next box the way Rhoda did for you. If you can move them to the next box.
No, I've already moved them. It's for you now to change the color to yellow. Yes.
All right, so I'm changing to yellow. This is the screen, so I need to share my screen.
I think you lost somebody. Would you like me to take yellow and then you take pink, Eki?
Yes, please go ahead.
So yellow. So let's do yellow, Yellow. Oh, it's very hard, isn't it?
It's tiring.
It is. Repetitive strain injury is coming on here. Developing a repetitive strain injury. Oh, click the wrong. No, stop spinning it. Right, I'll go over here. Sometimes when they're too close together, you end up with a tool dysfunction and it's trying to spin the items rather than... what color am I picking? I forgot the color now. There we go.
Yellow.
Yeah. Well, I think I picked kind of orangey, but yeah.
Oh, men are colorblind. You're excused.
Yeah. What's the timer up to?
3 minutes, 49 seconds, 50 seconds, 51.
So in this group we're selecting them all at once, yeah?
Yes.
Right. So whoever's doing the pink process, your go.
It's Eki.
Eki. You don't need to share your screen, just change the items. We can all see them. Are you there, Eki?
I'm a bit of a challenge sharing my screen. So on screen 4, right?
Yep, you don't need to share
Yes.
your screen if you don't need to. You can. You're in the pink process.
I'm changing this to pink.
Yes.
Pink. Okay. All right. You can start the timer then.
Okay, then I've started.
Oh, I need to go help group 1. So hold on.
Write it down, just write the sticky note. So 1 minute, like 1 minute 50 seconds, something like that was 1 minute 50 seconds.
Hey folks.
Okay.
You guys should be working on more than one batch at once.
Yeah. We need to continue.
So whoever's red should be changing the next batch and moving it on to 2. The next batch of 5. Keep those batches going. This factory isn't going to change color itself.
Joanna,
I didn't understand that.
That's okay, right? So
I thought only 5, not all the 20.
So do 5, move them on. Do 5, move them on. Do 5, move them on.
Yeah.
You can start the next 5 as soon as you've handed the previous 5 off to the next person.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
go now. I can.
Yeah, we'll start again. Yeah, we have the first time and just combine.
So room 3 is good.
To finish the 5th bit, or Rhoda, are you going to do it?
Okay. How are you guys doing? The pink stuff needs to move into the customer, doesn't it?
Yes. How do you select all of them at once again?
So if you just hold down Control. And then select. They all go. What's the time on the timer now? The total time?
6 minutes,
6
seconds.
It's never 6 minutes, 6 seconds. I'm going to put that down though. 6 minutes, 6 seconds.
But that's not for the first batch.
So
what do you mean by the first batch?
Add up all of them. How long did it take you to get them from 1 all the way down to 5?
So we haven't finished 5 yet. So as it is, the first batch we did it at 1 minute 28 seconds.
Okay.
So the customer one, which is now, I guess we're supposed to change them to purple.
Well,
that's what I want.
Let's call the customer one done. Okay.
Okay then. So it's 6 minutes 6 seconds.
In total, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
Yes.
6 minutes. It seems like you were stopping the timer, but we'll let it go. Okay, so for round 2, I'd like you to start round 2. Change 5 of them, move 5 to the next process, and then start changing the next 5. Does that make sense? So there should be. So 5 turn to red, give them to green. Next 5 turn to red, give them to green. Next 5 turn to red, give them to green. Green works on the first 5 they get from red, moves them to yellow. They should have the next 5 from red waiting, move them to yellow. Make sense?
Okay then. So if that's the case, that means I shouldn't stop the timer.
So start the timer again from scratch. Okay. So if you hit the reset. Okay. So I'll be red. Okay. And who's green? Who's the green color? Is that you, Dennis? Dennis, are you green? Okay. So I'm gonna change. So start the timer. Oh. Start your timer.
Started it.
Started it. Cool. So I'm gonna change 5 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to red, and then I'm going to put them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoever's green can start changing those ones to green while I work on the next 5. Okay. Oh, we got a defect sneak in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so whoever's in the yellow process, once you've got 5, you can start working on the 5. So there'll be 3 of us working at the same time. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can tell I've done this before, can't you?
Okay, then who's pink. Eki, do the pink bit.
Right, I'm going to check out on the other rooms because I can see some of them are done. So I might bring you back early, okay? I don't know what's happening in room 5. I knew it would be Gordon and Michelle in room 3. Gordon and Michelle, you guys are finished the fastest out of everyone. Room 1's almost finished. I'm actually not sure what the delay is. They've got some kind of malfunction. Will probably bring. I don't know what's happening in 5. What I'm going to do is I'm going to close. Oh, Victoria, I'm just putting you on mute. There's just a lot of background noise. I am going to close all the rooms, bring everybody back, and we can look at the data from room awesome. Sorry, room 3.
Do you want to fix the typo there? The batch size says 15. We did do batches of 20 because it would make it awkward.
But the time we had left over, we helped you to proofread.
Thank you for that, Michelle. Everybody knows my spelling is atrocious. It's a well-known fact.
But there's a number. This is a number. 15 or 20.
So I'm just gonna mute everybody because there's some background noise from a couple of people. But feel free to unmute again if you don't have background noise. So that was very interesting. There was a lot of things going on there. I see that some teams managed to have different degrees of how quickly they got through it. I'm just looking to see who was the longest in room 1. 10 minutes 30 seconds for 5. 9 minutes 55, so about 10 seconds again for 2. 8 minutes for room 1. I'm just going to look at room 3 because they managed to finish all of their items. So I'm just going to summon everybody over to see what we got here. So I'm just going to use this as indicative of roughly how it would have turned out for everybody. Okay, because everybody's kind of doing the same tasks. Although some teams were cheating and multi-selecting, but let's not go there.
Martin, are you going to share your screen by any chance? So that we can see.
I can share my screen. I think a couple of you are struggling with internet, so let me share my screen and then you can see that. And let me do that so I can, give me a second so I can see you guys again. There we go. Now I can see you guys. So I'm sharing my screen here. That's working over there. So in round 1, where we did batches of 20, so only one person was working at once, weren't they? So with one person working at once, it took about 9 minutes. If we average it between all of the teams, it probably took about 9 minutes to get 20 things done. What was your guesstimate, Michelle, at the start of round 1? 4 minutes, yeah.
So part of the problem there was that was a bit of a panic guesstimation because we sort of forgot to do it, and then we got started with the first 4, and then it was like a panic. 4 minutes, and then we like got like halfway, and then it was already like just over 4.
But Gordon, when teams are working for real, all the best decisions are made in a panic, aren't they?
I mean, yeah, and you can see that we got better with estimations as each sprint completed, though.
Yep, as each round, as you finished each round, you definitely got better. You got closer in. So, round 1, 4 minute guess, 8.5 minute finish. 8.5's actually pretty fast for this exercise with 20 items. Round 2, 6 minute guess, 4 minute finish. But how quickly did you get the first batch of 5? 2 minutes. That's half the time that you took to get all of them, and that time to get all of them in batches of 5 was twice as fast as the time it took you to do a batch of 20. Why was that?
Because there was
You're
4
mute,
people
Michelle.
working at the same.
It was more efficient.
It's more efficient because you've got more people working at once. Yeah. And then what happens when we go to batches?
But also there must be a small part of they've already done it once, so they got better at the job as well.
Yes. So there is a if you ran the whole exercise again, right, you've got the skills now, a little bit extra skills to do the job. You find that the timing doesn't change that much, but it does change. It does get a little bit better, right? A little bit better. But the vast majority of this time savings that we got was in the team being more effective as a whole, right? And more people working at once. And then you can see how long it takes you to get the first piece of value in round 3. 28 seconds. Yeah. That's a quarter of the time it took you from round 2. So the value's not huge, right? But if that was your if that was your first experiment, you would find out in 30 seconds that the rest of it's not worth it. If you had to stop after the first piece of work, which piece of work should you have done first? Did anybody notice that the pieces of work had different numbers on them?
Yeah. We got some of ours in the wrong order on the second one. I think it was.
So it was kind of for that, but kind of to ask the question, wouldn't it be best to do the 10s first if 10 represented the amount of value, right? You would do the 10s first.
So I mean,
then,
well, in my mind, the size, or at least when I saw the numbers, I was thinking of the sort of amount of effort required in getting that piece of work done, which is why you would want to start with.
But they are all the same.
Yeah, fair enough.
So if it's value, if you did the 10s and then the 5s and then had to stop, and there's only the 1s left, you've got 90% of the value through the system already.
Yeah. The other small side effect that I noticed was the I suppose you could say the quality of it. So if you look at the first block, when we're doing 20s, like because I was in block 4 there, the rushing of dropping it on, they sort of all just landed in 20. And the second block, you can see some of them overlapping, but not that many. And in the 5th block, I think there's one block that's touching each other. So the overall quality of the job with a more streamlined workflow was better as well.
I agree, Gordon. And there's also that piece where if you're looking at a pile of 20 things, you're going, holy moly, I've got 20 things I've got to do. When there's only one thing, I'm just doing one thing. You know, you do that one thing right. But if I've got to do 20 things, I'm starting to rush. I'm starting to make mistakes. I change it to the wrong color. I set a border rather than a color, but accidentally. Or I moved to trying to drag and drop too many things that were too close together, and you end up spinning one in a circle. And so that's tool issues, right? But that represents the real world.
Yeah.
And when I do this with physical coins, the coins fall off the table, right? Somebody has ham fists the coins, so they fall off the table. The timer doesn't stop because the customer still wants the value.
Yeah.
And we got to go pick it up. That simulates a bug. That simulates something getting in the way of our process and our problem.
Yeah, it's something that we spoke about. As like with my OCD, like I would, if I chose the wrong shade of pink, even though it's pink, I'd have to go back and do it again. And Michelle's like, "Well, I'm the customer. I'm not going to accept different shades of pink."
Yeah. So there's also a quality check at each stage that you could do as well. Right, make sure it moved to the right process happened. I mean, we're just changing colors, which is a little bit straightforward, right? But when we're building software or we're building products, things moving between the stages, it's a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
So we can visualize using this exercise, and this is a good exercise to run with your teams as well. We can visualize why smaller batches go through the system faster. Right? Helps us make that connection in our head, because quite often I work with teams and they don't want to spend the extra effort to break things down into smaller chunks. Right? Because then we have to manage it in Jira, or we have to manage it in Azure DevOps.
Yeah.
That's more overhead. but that overhead is tiny in comparison to the amount of time you save because you've got smaller batches. Can you think of what might make this more difficult to have smaller batches?
So I was saying if we had to set a WIP limit, so you can't move stuff into one block if there's already, like, say the limit's 3, because then that would cause a build up in the blocks going backwards.
Yep, you could introduce a WIP limit. That's definitely a good experiment to try and see, you know, if you our batch size, when our batch size is 1, right? In this scenario, we got the most effective delivery, right? What would happen if we were using physical coins, flipping them over, and each station was in a different room? Would a batch size of 1 still be optimal? Perhaps not, because you waste a bunch of time running between the rooms. So maybe batches of 5 might be better, or maybe batches of 10 would be better if we have to run between the rooms.
Yeah, I suppose the distance between rooms would have to be a factor there. I mean, if the rooms are like 100 meters apart, then do batches of 20 because, or even batches of 10. Whereas if it's like 3 or 4 meters away, that's a very different scenario.
Yeah, exactly. So the batch size, there's no right batch size.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You've got to figure out, for your context, with your type of work, with your type of delivery, what is the most optimal batch size for our moment in time based on what we're doing. And that may change over time as well, but in general, smaller is better. In general. What are other batches, Gordon, that we use at work?
I mean, 5 seems quite common. I don't know why.
I was thinking of types of work that are batches. So it's okay. It's late for you, is it not? No, it's not. Is it not like nearly 7 p.m.?
10 to 8.
Oh, 10 to 8. Okay, only 1 hour difference. Michelle, what other types of batches?
Also 1 hour difference.
Also 1 hour difference. So
tickets.
Tickets are batches. Yeah.
Cases.
Tickets are batches. Sorry.
Cases.
Yeah, tickets, cases, backlog items, stories. These are batches. Any other batches that what batches might use in Scrum? We have a sprint, don't we? A sprint's a batch as well. Yeah. Here's a body of work that we're going to do. A release might be a batch if that's multiple bigger body of work, right? So we have all these different sorts of batches that we just have to understand how they go through the system. How are we delivering those things? And knowing that bigger takes longer, but there might be reasons to have things bigger. Okay. So I am conscious that we are a little bit over. So I covered a couple of these already. And I just wanted to highlight that there are some good pieces of information that we can use to do a little bit of research. Obviously, I'm trying to whet people's appetite with the mindset, right? So you go read some of the content. It's difficult to teach a lot in an hour and a half. There's the Kanban guide for Scrum teams. So if you are a Scrum team working to deliver software, you can help optimize your Scrum, get more effective at your Scrum by using Kanban. And the Kanban guide for Scrum teams is how did we do Kanban within the context of Scrum without breaking Scrum, right? There's also the Kanban guide, which was released, I was going to say last year, yes, December 2020, by Daniel Vacanti and the Pro Kanban community. And that's focusing just on the core strategies of Kanban, right? So it's not looking, there's also the Kanban method, which is taught by David Anderson and Lean Kanban University. That is more than just the core strategy for Kanban. It's got a bunch of practices around it, like Scrum has a bunch of practices around it, around an empirical process control system. But the Kanban guide is trying to distill that down to a very small group. And there are two books that I really recommend. One is Practical Kanban, right? That's the easy one to read out of those two. Practical Kanban is a pretty good team-focused, value-driven approach. And then Flow, if you really want to understand queues and how the math works for how that work flows through the system, then Flow, Principles of Product Development is a really good book. But if you don't have a math head, thank you, Grigori. If you don't have a math head, then you're probably not going to have a good time with that book. It's very mathy. So there's another book by Daniel Vacanti, which is a lot easier to read while covering a lot of the same topics, and that's Actionable Agile Metrics for Predictability. And he actually has a new one, which I've not read yet, so I can't. I don't know much about it yet. But when will it be done? But it sounds like a good book title, doesn't it? That's something that everybody asks us, when will it be done? And that's really important. So I wanted to cover a little bit more. I wanted to do a little exercise with you around the three core practices in Kanban. I don't think we have time to do it just now. That's my fault. We took a long time with that coin game exercise. I'm going to blame Gordon. That's for asking too many questions at the start. But maybe it was my explanation sucked.
I would have definitely cheated if I didn't ask as many questions.
Yeah, that's okay. It's always the facilitator. If timing is off, it's always the facilitator. And maybe I bit off more than I could chew there. But the three core practices around Kanban, the first one is defining and visualizing your workflow, right? Whatever system you're using, it doesn't matter whether you're doing waterfall, make it up as I go along, or Scrum, right? Whatever process you're doing, define and visualize your workflow. What are the stages that the work flows through? Why do things move between different columns? Why do you choose particular items? So definition of done is in the Scrum world, definition of done is your leaving gate. Definition of ready might be your arriving gate, right? You're not going to pull things into your system until they're ready. So they're part of your definition of workflow. And then you've got your columns and workflows generally from left to right, Gordon. Generally from left to right, through different stages of work. Do you do some design? Do you do some analysis? Do you do some coding and do some testing and then do some validation and then it's done, right? And you got to meet your definition of done.
So while we're looking at the columns, just saying back to the first exercise we did, where you said like each column doesn't need a work in progress as long as it sort of works with the overall workflow. Is that saying then that for the overall workflow you would have, like regardless of what the WIP limits are, you still have a certain amount of things in play at once?
Yes. So you have to have a WIP limit. Minimum requirement of Kanban is having a WIP limit between the arriving work and the leaving work, right? Your starting work and your finishing work. Okay. And that's part of the second core practice, which is actively managing your work, right? So not just looking at it and go, oh, look, we've got too much stuff, right? Actively doing something about it.
Yeah.
So in order to do something about it, we need to count it.
Yeah. I was just thinking, like every time, I mean, I've used this with the team. We've always used WIP limits that are on each column as, I suppose, inherently the way to limit what's in flow for the whole workflow. But we've never looked at actually applying that. I mean, I suppose we've never really looked at the book either to do it academically. How we're supposed to do it. It's sort of that. It's those teams that's like, yeah. We do Kanban, which is another way of saying, yeah, we don't have a process. We just drag shit across the board.
Well, but it's the same as we do Scrum. We store our work in Jira and we stand up every day. Right?
Yeah, I suppose
it's the same idea. So understanding how much work you currently have in progress will help you understand the limitations that you've got in your system. Generally, not just reducing batch size, but reducing the number of items that you have in progress tends to improve the flow of work through the system. So the speed of an item as it goes through the system, it just flows better. So they're the two biggest improvements that even a Scrum team can make in their process, is understanding their flow of work, right? So we need to visualize it so we can see what's going on, because you know what it's like, Gordon, when you don't look at that board with the 50 things on it, it doesn't look like when you're looking down here that you've got 50 things you're working on, because I'm working on 2 things, but there were these 10 things that were blocked yesterday.
Yeah.
Right. So I took on these 2 new things, which means I've got 12 things in progress. The big number is the bit with why have we got so much stuff in progress? Why are we not getting things done? Right. And then in actively managing work, you can look at how things are arriving into your system and how things are leaving from your system. Right. That's what the CFD, cumulative flow diagram, is showing you.
Yeah.
Right. Your average arrival rate versus your average leaving rate, and then you ideally want 2 parallel lines really close together on your cumulative flow, but you're never actually going to get that in the real world. But the closer you get to 2 close parallel lines, the more effective your system is being, the quicker things are flowing through your system. And usually you get big chunky bits. You can always tell looking at a cumulative flow for a team that's doing Scrum, because they have that big chunky, we deliver at the end of the sprint, we've got more work taken on, deliver at the end of the sprint, you've got a chunky cumulative flow going through. So that's visualizing the work and defining the workflow is the first core practice of Kanban, right? So that's defining why things move, what type of works do we have, what type of works do we have, what type of work do we have represented on the board, stories, bugs, what are the support tickets, what are they, and then how they flow through the system, what happens at each stage, why they move, and then actively managing that work by monitoring how many things we've got in progress, and taking steps to reduce those things. That's part of improving the workflow. So the last part is that improving the workflow. Make changes to your system. See how those changes that you make affect the flow of work through that system, and continuously improve over time. So if you look at the exercise we did, the main thing we changed with each round was reducing the batch size, and we got better numbers, right? But at some point, you're not going to get better numbers. You've reduced the batch size and you make it smaller, and suddenly the numbers are worse. Okay, well, we found what might be our optimum batch size just now. Okay, maybe that's 4, right? 4 is a good batch size for whatever it is we're doing. Now you've got 4 things flowing through the system. You can then look at what else can we change, right? Things spend a lot of time in waiting in testing before the testers can take it on. Have we got some kind of constraint there that prevents that work flowing more effectively? How do you visualize that where you can see it on the board, right? So that you've got that cycle of visualizing the workflow, actively managing the work, and improving the workflow. And there are 4 metrics that we want to look at as part of that system. You've got your work in process, Gordon. That's from when work started to when you agree it's finished. Okay. But you've also got the age of work in the system. How long has something been sitting there? And you can use that. That's the data I would look at during my daily Scrum, for example, right? Things that have been sitting there longer are less likely to get done. And you're looking at your cycle time, which is the time it takes for an item from when it started to when it finished. Then you can look at your average cycle time. And then your throughput, right? That's number of items delivered per unit of time. So in Scrum, the unit of time is normally a sprint, right? But it could be 5 days, 10 days, 50 days, whatever your unit of time is. And your throughput is your average throughput is that measure of how quickly you're going to burn through your backlog, right? So if you want to increase your throughput, you can reduce your batch size, right? That's one way to increase your throughput, or reduce your cycle time, depending on what happens. Right? You're not going to be able to control those two things, throughput and cycle time, but you can control your work in process. That's the one thing that you as a team have 100% control over, is your work in process. And if you reduce your work in process, either your throughput increases or your cycle time decreases, or both, right? Because math, right? I should really have the let me just grab it. Let me grab the one from, I've got a little diagram, a little formula that I should have put in here, but I forgot. So let me just load it up for you. But it's Little's Law, or it's a rendition of Little's Law in the software world. So this is from Daniel Vacanti. And it's just a little formula. Let me grab it. It's here somewhere. There it is. Let me grab that. Copy image. And then I should be able to paste it in here. And then I'll make it a lot bigger. There we go. So this is Little's Law. And this is true regardless of whether you're waiting in a queue in the supermarket, right? Or you've got work backing up in your backlog or your sprint queue, right? So your average cycle time equals the average work in process divided by the average throughput. So there's two of these numbers that are very difficult for us to control, right? Average cycle time, how fast things get done, we have no control over that in the software world, none whatsoever. How many items we deliver, we probably have no control over that, or very little control over that. It's very difficult to affect those two numbers. But we can control average work in progress. So Gordon, you're a mathematician, aren't you? What happens? What happens if our average work in progress gets smaller, but these other the average throughput stays the same? What happens to cycle time?
So you get less work in progress, and your
if you have less work in progress and throughput stays the same, cycle time will get smaller. We'll deliver the same number of items in a shorter period of time.
Yeah.
If average work in process gets smaller and cycle time stays the same, throughput will get smaller. Okay, so the one thing we can control is the amount of work we currently have on our plate. And that's the thing that we need to reduce. If you want to know all the math behind it, go read Daniel's book. Right? That's probably the best book. If I was to pick anything to go read, it's probably Actionable Agile Metrics for Predictability. Right? It's called an introduction, and it's got all the graphs that you see Kanban teams use, right? And it explains exactly how they work, what a good one looks like, what a bad one looks like, what to look for in the data aberrations in there so that you can visualize and see what's going on. And that's really important, having those information radiators, being able to visualize that work. So I think that's all we've got time for. I'm kind of 7 minutes over. I saw a few people had dropped off already. I would definitely like some feedback. And I think I know quite a lot of the feedback is going to be around timing. This one is a lot harder to bring together. A flow discussion is a lot harder to bring together in a short period of time. And I will need to pivot and experiment differently to try and get these things across a little bit more easily. What do you think, Gordon?
Yeah. I was just trying to think of a quirky way to work the work in progress in there. But my brain is dead.
Yeah, Oh, was the mural slow for people? Or I know there was a few people that struggled to get on the mural. If you've got a slow machine, mural kind of sucks, for sure. If you have poor internet access, it takes a long time to load. I do know that. This is quite a small mural compared to the ones that I normally use for training. But as it turns out, I had too much content anyway.
I have a question, Martin. So, how do swim lanes come into the picture? Does that work with a priority thing, or is it more just a categorization? Like, how does that affect your work in progress?
So you're talking about the horizontal swim lanes?
Yeah.
So there's a really good video from Daniel Vacanti about swim lanes on how usually it's the swim lanes are categories of service. Okay. I think is the phrase that they use. So you might have an expedite lane.
Yeah.
And then a normal lane. So most work goes in the normal lane, and then you maybe limit the expedite lane to one item, right? So that one item flows faster across the board. But Daniel Vacanti does a good talk on why that sucks and makes everything worse.
I was just wonder like if you've got an expedite lane, but you've already hit your limit for work in the system, then how do you expedite saying without breaking your limits?
So you can either not break your whip limits, or there's nothing in Kanban, right? In the Kanban guide that says you can't break your whip limits.
Yeah, sure, but I mean the idea of it being there is because it's a good idea not to break them. Right?
Yes, right. It's definitely a good idea. So what I normally see teams do is they have their normal body of work, and then they have an expedite lane, and the expedite lane has a whip limit of 1.
Okay.
So they're only adding one more thing to their process, but there's a massive negative impact, like a knock-on effect of that one thing getting priority time instead of maybe you normally pick the oldest thing on your backlog, right? So it's definitely a little bit worrying to have an expedite lane. I've seen it be successful with teams, and I've seen it be a complete car crash. Project managers like them because it means they can prioritize stuff. Like here's the P1 stuff and the rest. But it tends to have a negative impact on our ability to deliver. I'll need to look out. I'll post the video from Daniel. I'll try and find it and post it on the community page. Because I think that's going to be the easiest way to get it out to folks. Because the chat in this disappears when we all disconnect. So that sucks.
I suppose maybe then a good, or in my mind with what we said now, a potential good way to have swim lanes is to have them for the value to customer. So it's just a visual categorization then, like here's high value to customer, medium value, low value. It's still stuff that's always going to be in the system, but it's almost a way to, I suppose if you're prioritizing stuff from the top anyway, your high value stuff's generally at the top of that list, right?
And just because it's high value doesn't mean you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? If you look at holistically, it's this is going to cost $1 million to deliver, but the value is 500,000.
Yeah.
It's not worth doing, even though 500,000 is a lot of value.
Yeah.
So you need to balance the value with the effort, or the risk as well, the complexity of delivering. There's I'm not going to open it just now. There's a topic that I do want to cover on value. For product ownership, determining value and determining how we order our backlog, and you need to take into account value, effort, and risk, right? Because the risk is going to come into that too.
Yeah.
So it would be awesome if folks, if you've got ideas, not just new ideas to try, but topics you want to cover. I hadn't decided yet on what the next session is going to be in 2 weeks. Obviously, I need to work on timing, right? That's going to have less content, more discussion. But What are the topics, Michelle? If you were coming back in 2 weeks, what topic would you like to cover?
I want to understand better about Kanban and Flow because I don't have any background knowledge about these things. So I've got the practice from the exercise, but I haven't really got the theory yet. I feel.
Yeah. I totally. If you read the Kanban guide for Scrum teams and the Kanban guide, are your teams doing Scrum? Are your teams doing Scrum?
Yeah.
Kanban guide for Scrum teams then is what I would recommend, and it's a good place to start. So it's a short, I think it's like a 12-page guide, just like the Scrum guide, but here's an addendum for the Scrum guide that says how you introduce the Kanban ideas. It's very difficult to cover the Kanban theory in the period of time that we have here. I do an exercise with teams as part of the Kanban training. With we play the Get Kanban game. I don't know if you've seen that board game, but there's an actual there's a physical board game. I have copies of it here, but there's also a digital version. But it takes about 2 hours to play the game, and then probably takes 2 hours to do the debrief afterwards. So I have done that for just that part for teams before for companies, and that can be super valuable in just understanding that flow of work. But we can have a chat about the theory, but it's definitely a lot. I definitely recommend the material that I put in the notes there. But I totally get it, Michelle, at the lean flows. This is the real struggle that we have as an industry, is that velocity and story points is easy but useless, right? The Kanban metrics are awesome, but super hard to understand, super hard to implement, and super hard to get value from, because they take a lot of effort and brain power to interpret and understand and collect and change the way you do things. That's I think going to be the next big struggle for teams and organizations, is that the Kanban metrics are awesome, but they're super hard for people to understand. And they're counterintuitive to people's traditional understanding of how work works, right? Michelle, I've got these 5 projects. I need you to show progress on all 5 of these projects at once, right? And that's so dumping all this whip on top of you is not going to help you deliver stuff faster. It's going to help you deliver stuff slower. But if we were doing boring, repetitive stuff, it might, we might be able to make progress on it, but it just is slow. I'll post it in the community. There's a video that demonstrates that the downtime for switching process perfectly. I'll post that one as well. That's a really good one. So I'll post that, because I saw, Michelle, you joined the community thing, I think I saw. So I do encourage, I'm switching over to a different system. I was running everything in Microsoft Teams, but Microsoft Teams sucks for people engaging with it. It's just not great for that. So I'm moving over to a different tool. I can't even remember what it's called, but it's community.nkdagility.com. I have a link on my website, and you should be able to just go join. And I'm going to start adding a bunch of content in there, and hopefully we can get some conversations going in there, Michelle. Right? If you have questions, post them in there, and if you've got specific questions, like you've read the Kanban guide and you're like, what the hell is this, Martin? Right? we can either maybe something in the chat, or we can have a separate call and maybe just invite a few people and have a conversation. Does that sound good, Michelle?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah.
Totally, anytime. Same with you, Gordon, and everybody else on the call. If you want to talk about something, you can ping me on the community.nkdagility.com, and we can either set up a call, have a chat, do it in the text. I can post some videos, whatever helps us get to the better learning. Okay. So I have not decided what I'm going to do in 2 weeks. I saw some people asking for, somebody's asking, really important question for me. When's the next PSK class? I actually can't remember. I have everything on my website. I just did my schedule for the next 6 months. and I know there's a PSK on there somewhere. I've clicked the button to load it, but because my machine's doing a lot, when's my next PSK? It will be purple. 29th of November, 4 half days, 8:30 a.m. till 12 GMT. So that's UTC plus what? No, GMT. GMT, that's back into UTC because the times changed, Michelle. You know when you're coding up that stuff, it's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last week of October, isn't it? Yeah.
So, and I had to write the PHP that calculates that on my website. Not my proudest moment. PHP is not fun. But 29th of November is the PSK class, and then I have another one on the 7th of March next year. So that's a little bit away.
So Terence hands up. I don't know if to ask this question
already. Terence?
Yes, hello Martin. This is totally new to me, and I am actually a change lead for an organization that's just trying to essentially get into Agile.
Right.
So the first Agile project, they basically use DSDM for all things.
Yeah.
And now they're realizing that potentially the route that they might have to go is for like operational little changes, they might just be using Kanban.
Yep.
And then for some other big, very digital web-based kind of projects, they might then be using Scrum. So, I really would need some kind of, I don't know what I say, help or some kind of a way that I can get the team to basically maybe attend a session or whatever it is that I can use to get this team working the way they should, because it's obviously a very traditional and headstrong environment in terms of they're not understanding the power of Agile, in particular, Scrum or Kanban. So I don't know whether there is any ways of helping or what else can I do to basically get these people going.
So the thing with Kanban, right, is it's a strategy to optimize the flow of work through any system. Okay, so you can use it regardless of what you're doing. Whatever it is you're doing, you can use Kanban to help you get better at it. It's just a strategy. So you just start, you don't even need to mention Kanban to them. You just have to start with, what I usually do is I do something called a board design exercise with teams. And I basically, I just use Mural, right? Because it's ultimately editable. And let's build a board, decide when work starts, when it finishes, what are the columns we're going to have, why do things move through the columns, and just get them to write that down. It's like a working agreement, right? You find that most teams lose a huge amount of time because they're all doing something different. Every team member doesn't have the same understanding of how we're going to do stuff, and that creates conflict and friction within the team that results in loss of time and loss of effectiveness. So at least getting that visualization of your workflow and defining your workflow. What are your explicit policies for how you're going to do stuff? But you don't tell them what their policies should be. You get the team to come up with them, because the team has to own them. Build those things, do that type of workshop with them. That's the first stage. Then the next stage is actively managing the work. Look at that visualization you've created. You can build boards in Jira. You can build boards in Azure DevOps. There are many other tools out there, Kanbanize, that you can just build a board in. And then
we use Azure DevOps. That's what we use. So.
Okay. That makes Gordon and I happy. Yeah, or Planner as well. Planner's not the most awesome tool, but it does do the job. Same as Trello. You can use Trello as well. But having that visualization of work, and Azure DevOps will let you set up the columns, have set up the WIP limits, set up the they call it the definition of done for each column, right? What are the explicit policies for each column and why things move between the columns? Have that information explicit, and then start tweaking it a little bit at a time. Yeah, GitHub Projects V2. Is that even, like, can we use that yet, Gordon? You're on mute, my friend. You need one of these little green lights that I've got.
I think I was not on mute, and then I clicked mute to talk. So I think it's available for public orgs at the moment. Either that or it's in private beta.
Was it called
I know
GitHub?
that,
GitHub?
Yeah, GitHub Projects V2, I think it is, because it came with issues V2. Because if I go look at my org, it will tell me, maybe give me some more info there.
Well, I guess lots of people don't care. I'm interested in that because I have I have many projects on GitHub, and I want to know how to enable those features. Are they just enabled, or do I have to go do something?
So it's in beta at the moment. I'm assuming it's private beta. So
yeah, I probably have to email somebody.
I know who you can get hold of for that.
Yeah. I'll email Martin.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a look if I can see anything that sort of, I mean, if you look at the I suppose this goes straight to issues feedback. So maybe projects is part of issues, or at least lumped with it.
Yeah, so Dennis is just saying that he really likes the delivery plans feature that they've added in Azure DevOps, and I do too. It does dependency management as well. It's pretty awesome. I've been using that a lot with some of my customers, and they're really enjoying using it. So I work with a number of organizations around the world, UK, Ghana, Nigeria, where else, Gordon? Wow, pretty much everywhere. I think I've worked in 36 countries in the last 10 years, usually about 16 countries a year. And that was before I wasn't allowed to fly anywhere. Now it's probably more because people just message me.
Yeah, I mean, you said at Summit, you said what, you're home 2 weeks, 3 weeks of the year, so you didn't buy a car because it was pointless.
Yeah, I didn't. Before lockdown, I have a car now, but I didn't own a car before lockdown because I wasn't here long enough. I was only here at the weekend. So sometimes it worked out as 1 day, Gordon, from the perspective of a rental car. So I just did the rental car thing. So I rented a car when I was at home. That's how much I was traveling. But now not so much, and quite enjoying it. And I get to spend more time with customers, and I get to do things like this with folks that I wasn't able to do before. Well, thank you everybody for the feedback. I am perfectly happy to hang out. We're like 26 minutes over. I'm perfectly happy to hang out if there's more questions. If you want to go, please go. If you provided feedback, awesome. I will set up the session for the next one in 2 weeks. I want to go back to the original time, but I need to look at my magic book. Gordon, I've got an actual diary, physical diary that I have to look at.
I moved to one of those a couple months back.
Yeah.
When technology can't track all the to-dos that you have to do because it's
technology's too fragmented across all the different companies I work with, so I have everything written in my book. That's my single source of truth. But I'm gonna I'll post in. Well, I'll do the usual post on LinkedIn, but I'll also add it to this new community portal I've created once I get it set. Well, once I've decided what it is we're going to do. Victoria, did you have a question?
It's around the Kanban principles, Kanban practices. Yeah, I think it's the principles and practices.
Yep.
So sometimes you read online and then it says the principles are 6 and then some say 4.
Yep.
And then the practices, some also say 4 and some say 6. And I am actually very confused right now.
Totally. So I would there's the Kanban guide for Scrum teams, which lists 4 things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's got to work with Scrum. And then there's the Kanban guide, which lists 3 things. Three core practices. what you find is there's Kanban, and then there's the Kanban method, which is a named framework from David Anderson, and that I can't remember how many practices that has. Does that have 16? No, I don't think it's that
6.
many. I don't remember. I'm not a follower of David's work, but they have a bunch. Maybe that's where the 6 comes from, right? That's the 6, the 4, and the 3, and then we've got it. But what they're trying to do with the Kanban guide is get down to the core must-have practices. Lots of people use other practices, just like when we're doing Scrum, right? We also use burn down charts, but burn down charts are not part of Scrum. They're just an extra thing that people do. And just like Gordon and I had the discussion about things moving across the board from left to right, that's a normal thing that Kanban teams do, but it's not part of the core. We don't have to have that to be doing Kanban. So I think go to the Kanban guide and the Kanban guide for Scrum teams, depending on whether you're doing Scrum or not. Look there for the core practices, and then there are other practices you can bring in from any other place you like.
Right. Okay.
But that's definitely, Victoria, I might do, I'm going to take a note, Kanban vs PSK versus PK. Yeah. I will do a post on the community group with a discussion around that, just to help you out with that, just to focus on it. Okay?
Sure. Thank you so much.
Just I guess why is there an extra one in the PSK versus PK? Professional Kanban versus professional Kanban with Scrum. Why is there an extra practice? Core practice. And then if you post on that and add the where you found the 6, maybe we can start a discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can just start a discussion around, well, why is there 6 over here, and where do they come from? Yeah. Everybody does something different. There's no right or wrong way to do almost anything. Everybody does their own thing, and we got to figure out what works well for us and what doesn't. That's what it is. Empirical process control. So I guess that's a good segue to wrap up. 31 minutes over. That's better this time, Gordon. I think we were 45 minutes over last time.
But now we're in the networking side. Networking is when everyone goes home, right?
Yeah, exactly.
When the pub kicks you out.
Yeah, we can't go to the pub anymore. Well, we can probably go to the pub again, but I don't know. None of my friends go to my local pub, because all of my friends are in South Africa, like Gordon, or Ghana, like Victoria. Anna, where are you in the world?
Macedonia.
Estonia. See, this is...
No, Macedonia. Balkan, Macedonia.
So we can't just all go to the pub, Garden.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said. Every time we go to MVP Summit, it's like it's a very tiring week, but it's the 1 week a year where I see all my friends. Like,
I know. So we'll maybe need to have a online. I like rum rather than beer, but some kind of some kind of beer thing going on. Online cocktail, yes, Dennis. Some kind of online cocktail session. That would be good. Although we won't be able to live stream it because we might say things. We'll talk about our companies. Okay, well I think we should wrap it up. I definitely see the feedback on time management. I need to work on that. This was the first time I'd really run this session in this format. Definitely needs a lot of work. I agree. And we'll see what happens next week. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody, for coming along.